What is up, everybody? This is Philip Enriquez for the Say What You Like Sports Podcast, and we are bringing to you the 2019 edition of Preview and Predictions. And on this one, we are tackling the AFC South, and this is one last year I got a lot of crap for. Nobody agreed with me on where I ranked these teams, but you know what? In the end, I really didn't do too bad on my predictions, but this year, I got my co-host Eric Hernandez in here, and we're going to start off by talking about the Houston Texans, right?
Yes, Houston Texans. Probably one of the more stable ones with head coach Bill O'Brien, offensive coordinator Tim Kelly, defensive coordinator Romeo Cornell.
Bill O'Brien's going into his 6th year in the league. That kind of crept up on me real fast.
And you know what? He's made the playoffs a few times. He is not one of the typical, New England coach busts.
He has.
Free agency, they did get Deshaun Gibson, and they did get Bradley Roby over from Denver. And then the draft. And Titus Howard, offensive tackle, Alabama State, who apparently is playing guard in training camp. They pulled a Raiders on you.
Yeah. A gallery special.
Yep. And when I look at their schedule, I mean, it does them no favors. They open at New Orleans on Monday night, at the Chargers, at Kansas City, at Baltimore, versus New England, and at Denver.
Yeah, they got a tough opening schedule.
Yeah, throughout their year, they are hating life. And that's why, for me, when I look at this team, it's going to come down to Deshaun Watson and Malik Hopkins. And can they continue to kind of grow and build and be that 1-2 combination that gets them through the season?
I think this team has a little bit more talent than maybe you'd like to give them credit for. I mean, you think of Deshaun Watson, and at a certain point in time, this guy was on fire. When you look at, small points in this dude's career, I mean, he's lighting it up. And I have to start off by giving Deandre Hopkins his props. I think he is, without a doubt, the best wide receiver in football. And that's something I don't think you hear really anybody else saying, but I believe it.
Yeah, I mean, you look, he's kind of got the total package. Big, strong, can run, can catch big mitts. You could throw it up to him. He run after the catch. I mean, he's amazing. And then you got to remember.
And he doesn't come with drama.
For receivers, that's a rare commodity. Then you also look at, the defense. I mean, you have Watt, who's getting another year older, but is still there. And you hope that the Jadeveon Clowney situation kind of resolves itself. But right now, he's holding out.
Yeah, and then, you always had another mainstay on that defense. You had Whitney Merciless, but he kind of had a down year last year. But I was expecting him to do some big things. But hopefully, like you said, if Clowney gets back, Watt stays healthy, that, he could be another one that picks it up next year. That's why I think I'm going to go with the Texans. I can see them finishing third. I don't see this team finishing last. I think there's still too much talent. That's not to say this team doesn't have holes. I think they do have holes. You pointed that out. But where they have the top end talent, they got the top end talent.
Yeah, man. When I look at the Houston Texans, I think they will be one of the teams that shocks the NFL, and not the way they want to shock the NFL. I think they will be bad. I think they finish fourth. I think battle line play is going to be a big issue. The defense, you have Watt older. You have Clowney holding out. I think defensive coordinators, again, will be able to adjust a little bit to Watson. Their schedule is hard. And when I look at this team as a total, they probably have one of the worst offensive lines in the league. And I think when you couple that with everything else, I just see this team finishing fourth in this division and kind of looking to reset certain things.
The next team we need to talk about on this AFC South edition of Preview and Predictions on the Say What You Like Sports Podcast, we have the Tennessee Titans. Now, the Titans are probably, out of all teams in the NFL, was the team that I got the most crap for my prediction. I think I picked them to finish third last season. So, Titans fans, I got bad news this year because I'm picking this team last. I'm picking this team to finish fourth.
You're bringing all that hate
in the division this year. I know they have talent. I know they're always in it. I know they can grind it out and get those wins. But the bottom line is I don't believe in the way this team is built, and I don't believe in the quarterback.
So when you look at the Tennessee Titans, they're commanded by head coach Mike Vrabel, offensive coordinator Arthur Smith, and defensive coordinator Dean Pease, who came over from Baltimore. When you look at their free agencies, they picked up quite a few players. You have Roger Saffold, guard from the Rams. Adam Humphries was a slot wide receiver from Tampa, who you heard New England kind of want. Kenny Vaccaro coming over from the Saints, and Cameron Wake. They also boasted their draft, boasted their team with drafting Jeffrey Simmons, who's like a top defensive talent, but was hurt. Then you also have a guy I liked in the draft, A.J. Brown, wide receiver out of Ole Miss, to couple with Malik Hooker and DeAndre Ward. I think they have a lot of talent. I think they've built actually kind of well. I think they built well through free agency and well through the draft. And, I look at their schedule. They open up at Cleveland. Then they have at Atlanta, at Denver, have at Carolina. They go to Oakland, and then they have New Orleans. So you look at their schedule, there's some ups and downs. When I look at the talent, I think it's there. I disagree with you on that part, right? I do think they've drafted well. I do think they've had free agencies, but they've gotten better.
They're trying to be like the AFC South version of the Patriots.
Yeah.
What they're trying to do. Yeah. They've got a lot of former Patriots on the squad.
Yeah, Malcolm Butler.
Yeah.
So I think they're good. But the problem is, and where I can't put them higher than third, is Marcus Mariota.
And Deion Lewis.
Yeah, Deion Lewis. So they're like, when you look at the talent, and Harold Landry, I think Harold Landry came out of Boston College, second-round pick. I like him. I liked him coming out of college. So I have them finishing third because at the end of the day, as great as that talent is, the two teams ahead of them have equal, if not more, talent. And just the quarterback play, I just don't trust Mariota.
Where would you rank Marcus Mariota as far as the 4 quarterbacks go in this division?
He'd probably be 4th.
Yeah, I'd have to agree. And when you look at it, this passing game was ranked 29th last season?
Yeah.
That's not going to get the job done. That's why you missed the playoffs last season. That's why last year at this time, when I was doing previews and predictions, that's why I just didn't believe in them. But wrapping this thing up for the Tennessee Titans, how many games do you see the Tennessee Titans winning this season?
I'm going to say they cap out at 8 because I just feel like Mariota is such a question mark, and he hasn't stayed healthy. When he's been healthy, I just don't believe in him. I think that there's a lot of talent, but when you look at their schedule, you look at the 2 teams that are above them, at least in our opinions, apparently 3 teams the way you have it, they just don't have the horses to keep up at that quarterback position.
Yeah, I think that if something is going to save this team, I think everybody's going to lean on Derrick Henry, the running game, the defense, which I'm sure will show up. There's no reason to believe that they're not. But I think what's really going to be the X factor for this team is special teams. They still have Adoree Jackson out of USC who, you know what? He's got speed. And so I think they're going to have to win those close games on special teams. But that's just something that I can't count on for 16 games. And that's why I got the Titans last in the AFC South this year. Before we begin the discussion on this next team, let me ask you a question. I know you're a believer in Fitz magic, but do you believe in Foles magic?
No.
Whoa. Why not?
Well, because I just...
Super Bowl champion, man.
Yeah, he took out New England. That automatically earns you some points.
There's got to be a little magic.
Yeah, but that stayed in Philadelphia.
Well, look, as far as the Jaguars go, I think that Nick Foles is without a doubt the X factor. That defense didn't play up to par. It didn't live up to the expectations that it set with the previous season. But you got to admit, Blake Bortles wouldn't inspire anybody to keep playing hard for 16 games.
No.
And that's where Foles' magic is going to make a difference, man.
Yes, to a degree, because they're not going to finish last. They're not going to be the worst team. And you got to remember, this was a year removed from playing in the AFC Championship against New England, from beating Pittsburgh. This team had it all. They have Doug Marrone as their head coach. They brought over John DeFilippo to help Foles. They have a connection.
Right.
Todd Walsh runs the defense.
He's comfortable in that system.
And they always seem to kind of draft well. You get their guys. They drafted Josh Allen, who was considered one of the top defensive ends. No one had thought he would last to 7. Some people had him going as high as 3 to Oakland. And they turn around and get Juwan Taylor out of offensive tackle out of Florida, who fell because of injury, similar to when they drafted Miles Jack.
Right.
So when you look at this team, it had to have been the quarterback that really did kind of cause the issues, because defensively they were great. But the problem is that defense, as we both know, is year to year. And unfortunately for them, this was the year it kind of hit. You remember the big run that Tennessee had on them? Derrick Henry pretty much ran 90-something yards.
Right.
You remember...
That defense was deflated, though.
Yeah. I think that, you also look at what Luck did to them one game. They had a lot of trouble.
Yeah, and here's the thing, man. I understand what you're saying, because I'm not saying Foles is a god or Foles is a top 10 quarterback or anything like that. But here's the thing. You give Nick Foles a decent running game, all that means is the only thing you need to bet on for this team to make an improvement is that Leonard Fournette has to get back on track. And if that happens, Foles can get this thing done, especially with the talent on the other side of the ball.
It's just like Foles. He's never been successful outside of Philadelphia.
Well, yeah.
The Ramsey was not good, and then Kansas City had a coffee break there.
But he had 2 runs in Philadelphia.
Yeah.
So
the one under Chip Kelly and the one under Doug Peterson. I just trust in Doug Peterson's abilities more. But when I look at Jacksonville, it's one of those things where do I trust their running game? And I just don't trust Leonard Fournette. He has a little bit of Trent Richardson to him. You know?
No, it's not that bad.
Not that bad, but he's got a little bit.
Okay.
There are times where
he
just was like, you're not sure if it's all there for him. And they have a pretty tough schedule. I mean, they open versus Kansas City. They have New Orleans on their schedule. One of my personal favorites will be when they travel to Oakland, just because I love AB versus Jalen Ramsey. You hope that this team kind of rebounds defensively. Adding Josh Allen to a stacked defensive line is going to be something good. They are dealing with Yannick Ngakoue. I think he's holding out still. Yeah. So you hope to get him back in the fold. And
Josh Allen's going to play that spot, right?
Yeah. But
come on, he's next to Darius, right? He's next to Calais Campbell, who led the league in sacks a couple years ago, right?
Yeah, and you still have like Miles Jack, and you have
Calvin Smith.
They're still that's a loaded stack defense. I think they got full of themselves last year, and it happens.
Or maybe they just got tired of Bortles, man.
Yeah, that's a massive improvement. That's why I do have them challenging for the division. It's going to be neck and neck with them in the number 1 team. But when I look at it, like they're just like the Colts. I mean, this team could be playing in the AFC Championship game if Nick Foles can even be similar to what he was in Philly. However, I just don't see that running game being enough, and I feel like we want to know, will Foles kind of fold? Will Foles kind of feel like he has to live up to that free agency contract? And that's why I do have them finishing second.
So if I'm hearing you right, I feel like it's not Foles you're doubting, but Fournette, to be able to support Foles and get this team over the hump.
Yes, because you got to remember, Foles also had, Alshon Jeffrey and Ertz. They had some weapons in Philly. I don't know if they have the same type of weapons in Jacksonville.
So last but certainly not least, we got to talk about the Indianapolis Colts. And I think this is the team that is going to be the favorite to win this division in 2019. This prediction is being made with a healthy Andrew Luck, and I'm already kind of concerned about that.
Yeah, you already hear the news that his calf muscle is still injured. He's
calf strain.
Yeah,
it's kind of reminding me of the Kevin Durant situation.
And you're worried because this is football. He's going to need that. He's going to be pushing off. He's going to be running.
If he tears an Achilles, that's it.
And then he's right back to where he started with the shoulder.
Yeah, it's kind of scary.
But what I want to talk about is how sometimes we have this plan. And I think everybody's guilty of it. You have this grand plan in your mind, and it doesn't work out. Right?
Right. You can plan the picnic, but not the weather.
Exactly. And they planned the picnic. If you remember a year ago, they were celebrating the hire of Josh McDaniels.
Right.
They even had a Twitter thing of his visor with the Colts thing.
Right.
Then I guess the owner, Kraft, decided, nah, I'm just going to screw with you guys. And they ended up turning to Frank Reich. And I think sometimes that worked out even better.
Yeah, it was a blessing in disguise. Exactly. Last year on Previews and Predictions, I said this will be a blessing in disguise. He's a much better coach than Josh McDaniels. And I think so far he's proven me right.
Yes. They also have Nick Sirianni as their offensive coordinator and Matt Eberflus as their defensive. They didn't do much.
Eberflus is also a former Cowboys defensive coach.
That's where I heard it from.
And he's everybody in Dallas was always very high on him. They wanted to keep him.
Yeah. I think they're going to do well with him. And free agency, they didn't do much. They added Devin Funchess, Justin Houston, and Spencer Ware. They're kind of a team that I think is a throwback where they built through the draft, drafting a guy like Rock Ya-Sin, defensive back out of Temple, Ben Banganu, linebacker out of TCU, and I think the guy they really enjoy is Paris Campbell, the wide receiver out of Ohio State, real speedster, along with Bobby Okereke, linebacker out of Stanford. So they built a lot. They built through the draft. That's why they traded down but last year so they could get these picks. They also allowed the Jets to go and get Sam Darnold. They use these picks to build their team out. So what are some things, you notice about the team that you like?
I like that this team is built well on the offensive line now. That was always the Achilles heel for the Colts a few years back, right? They could not protect Andrew Luck. Andrew Luck was taking this team deep into playoff runs, going 11-5 ever since his rookie season, and then he started to take those hits, started to get hurt, and then the Colts bottomed out. But when you look at their offensive line, man, I mean, you got Quentin Nelson, who's arguably the only guard I would even compare to Zach Martin in the league. I mean, he's physical at the point of attack. I see him move defensive tackles off the line of scrimmage, creating running lanes, shoring up the middle for Luck. And like I said, as long as this calf strain, quote unquote, doesn't affect Luck, I have confidence that this line is going to keep the pocket clean for Luck, and they're going to win the division, health permitted. So I really think that's the strength of this team.
And I also think that they can win a number of different ways. I think they can run the ball really well. That was another thing that they had struggled with during Luck's time because of the offensive line. They have the ability to run the ball. They have, Eric Ebron, who came over last year from the
Detroit.
line. Yeah, and, he was a bust there, but, he seems to have found a second life and a second wind.
I've always been high on Ebron. Last season when I did previews and predictions, I was telling the Detroit fans, I think you might miss him because I really thought he was a good tight end, and they were telling me, he's got bricks for hands and this and that. But look what he did with Andrew Luck in the Colts last season.
And sometimes
he's one of the top tight ends in the league. Yeah. I mean,
he was ranked high. Yeah, and then you look at its scheme. It's having a different type of quarterback. Sometimes, that's little things like that change. Also, maybe getting released helped him realize what he had his issues with. And then you look on the defensive side, and I think they're stable on the defense. There's not a lot of big playmakers on their defense.
But there's some good young players.
Yeah.
You got Malik Hooker, the safety. I mean, he was one of the safeties that was on everybody's wish list.
He was high on mine when he came out. I actually did want the Niners to draft him, especially because I felt like he had the range and he could hit. The linebacker, Leonard.
We always forget this dude's name.
And he's like the defensive rookie of the year.
Defensive rookie of the year. What's his name?
Darius Leonard.
Darius Leonard.
There you go.
Yeah. We really got to get that one down.
Yeah. I think they're solid. They don't have a great edge rush. Like, you don't picture anybody coming off the edge, but they're solid.
Well, hopefully Justin Houston can kind of, give a last hurrah.
But I think, like you said, they have, when you look at their schedule, I mean, they open at the Chargers, then they go to Kansas City. They do have Pittsburgh and Denver. And a week before Christmas, we get them going to New Orleans, which should be a really good game. So I'm looking forward to that. At the end of the day, this team is simple. It's Andrew Luck or bust.
Oh, wholeheartedly agree. I think without a doubt, Andrew Luck has proven he is the franchise for the Indianapolis Colts.